I haven't done a YouTube video in so long. I don't even know how to start. Hello. Hey everyone, my name is Camila. Hello everyone, my name is Camila and this is Ziggy and you're watching Style Pros. Today's video is all about Jamaica, man. So a couple of weeks ago, I went to Jamaica with my family. As the blogger and digital creator that I am, you know I had to document it. So I want to share my experience with you as well as give you any insights and tips that I have for traveling, especially internationally. So if you are interested in going to Jamaica and want to know what it's like, or planning some sort of trip out of the country very soon, or if you just are a subscriber and like my videos, then keep on watching. I need to start this video by giving a couple of disclaimers. I did not plan or execute this trip in any way, shape, or form. I went on this trip through my family member's company. I can speak to my experience in terms of where we stayed, what we ate, where we went, what we did. But in terms of the more in-depth behind the scenes, how to book and plan the excursions and things like that, I won't be able to give the details of that because I did not plan the trip myself. But I will be saying the names of places and provide links in the description so that you guys can check them out and book at your own discretion. Where in Jamaica did I go? I went to Montego Bay, Jamaica. Now, I have never been to Jamaica before in my life. I'm sure there are other areas in Jamaica that are amazing, but Montego Bay is where I went, and that's gonna be the scope of this video. What hotel or resort did I stay at? I stayed in the Secrets Resort. So I live in Los Angeles, California, so I went from LA to Atlanta and then Atlanta to Montego Bay. I flew through Delta and it was nice because on both planes I had the little touch screen so I could watch movies. That made the flight go by really nicely. On the flight from Atlanta to Montego Bay, the flight attendants were passing out something called a customs card. And it was almost like, it felt like I was in high school or something where a teacher is passing out a test and you had to fill it out and you had to fill out that card before you got off the plane. Basically, it was a little short form where you put your name, where you're going, how long you're staying, and you had to check off that you weren't bringing in dangerous devices into the country. You had to put your passport number, things like that. Again, I don't know the details of how you can book this, but there's a hospitality service called Club Mo Bay in Jamaica that just made my experience going through customs so seamless, and I felt so welcome. I was greeted by a lady that she had my name on the card. I felt so cool because I've always wanted one of those. Then she escorted me through the airport and we stopped at these different stations where I would show my passport as well as that customs card. She gave me different recommendations of what to do in Montego Bay, and she also got my luggage for me. It was really great. And on the way back, when leaving Jamaica, I got to stay in like a VIP airport lounge, also through that Club Mo Bay. So again, I'll put the information in the description, but I highly recommend, especially if you're going to an area you're not familiar with, I highly recommend going through a service where someone's escorting you through customs. So the first day I was there, it was mostly a travel day. I didn't really do too much. I just got off the plane. There's a car that came and picked me up and took me to the resort, and I just got settled in. Second day in Jamaica, that was when we did a excursion. Our excursion was a catamaran. So basically you got on a boat and you went sailing, and once you get to a certain point in the water, you had the option to get off the boat and do some snorkeling. I am not an adventurous person in that way. I don't love heights. I do not like roller coasters. I'm just not really wild in that way. Now, if you want me to go and sit somewhere and look cute, I'm your girl. But in terms of jumping off of cliffs and doing super radical things. That's not me. So I knew that I wanted to at least get on the boat, but I did not want to go snorkeling. I will say I was fighting for my life in the beginning of that boat ride. Everything was cool at first, but once, I guess the boat was going up against the water. So imagine you have water going like this, but you have a boat going this way. So then when you have two opposing things going at each other, then basically you have a situation where the boat's doing this. What I should have done is I should have sat in the back of the boat. Everyone was like sitting, chilling in the front. It was like a net, you could lay your feet out. That's where I was. Again, I was fine in the beginning, but once the boat kept doing that jumping motion, granted, I had planned and knew that obviously if I'm gonna get on a boat and I'm surrounded by water, I'm gonna get a little wet. But I didn't get a little wet, I got a lot of wet, like soaking wet, okay? So I'm like holding on while salt water's like in my eye, in my mouth, I can't see, eyes are burning, mouth is salty, soaking wet, wearing clothes that were not water repellent clothes. And the thing is, like, I want to call it motion sickness, but I didn't feel nauseous. Like, I didn't feel like I was gonna throw up. I just felt this overwhelming like feeling in my stomach, like this drop in my stomach every time we skipped over the water, and I just froze, like I couldn't move. Even if I wanted to go to the back of the boat, or even if I wanted to just get in a different area where I wasn't constantly getting flushed with all this water, I physically, it's like every single bone and muscle in my body just stopped working. And all I could think about it is, why did I do this? Why did I do this? This boat needs to stop. As soon as the boat stops, I can get up and move. Like, that's what was happening. It's a very overwhelming experience. I'm not someone who likes turbulence on airplanes. I don't think anyone does. But imagine you're on an airplane, or imagine you're on a roller coaster and it's at that peak and then it drops. You know, that feeling of that dropping in your stomach, that's what it felt like on the boat when it was going up against the waves. So it was just overwhelming. I felt dizzy and, like I said, not nauseous, but I still felt sick, but in a way I couldn't quite describe. Immediately it was like, why did I even agree to go on this boat? But once the waves kind of settled down and then other people got off to do the snorkeling, I was cool. My overarching point about the catamaran is, if you're expecting to be on a cute yacht that's, you know, going like this, barely moving, and you just are gonna chill or maybe turn up on a yacht, that is not what a catamaran is, okay? The boat, it's not small, but it's not big like a yacht, and especially if you go against, if you're going against the water, it's gonna be some bouncing, almost like a jet ski or something like that. The sun would be in and out. Sometimes it would go behind the clouds, other times it would be out. So initially when I got on the boat, I was hot, but then once I got soaked with that water, I was cold, and then it took a while for my clothes to dry, mostly because they weren't swim clothes, but also because the sun wasn't out for them to get dry. That was only the beginning of the boat ride. After the snorkeling, which I didn't do, and on the way back, everything was fine. There wasn't a lot of bouncing or uneasiness in that way. So I wanted to share with you guys the truth about the catamaran, because I know, especially on social media, people can take aesthetically pleasing videos. I do that myself, and make something look super fun. I'm not saying it wasn't fun, it just wasn't fun for me in the beginning. I'm so glad that I got out of my comfort zone, because even though I said to you guys like, oh, I don't like doing this and that and the other, it doesn't mean that I'm not afraid to try new things. I'm glad that I got out of my comfort zone and tried something new. Would I do it again? I don't know about that. If the boat was different, then maybe. At night on the resort, they would usually have really cool performances, ranging from someone playing the piano to circus-like entertainment, playing the steel drums. It was cool after a long day to see those performances at night. The last major thing I did in Jamaica was, of course, hang out on the beach. I went back and forth between just laying out on one of the chairs to actually putting my feet in the water. It was just great. Laying on the beach in stillness where my brain's not working, not even reading a book, just laying there, listening to the waves, the birds, really made me realize the importance of taking time for stillness in your day. At least for me, that's where I felt true relaxation. I wasn't worried about anything. I wasn't thinking about anything. I was just in the present moment, in nature, completely at ease. Next, I want to talk a little bit about some cultural differences. So first of all, let's talk about the weather. Obviously, Jamaica is an island. It's gonna be tropical weather. So imagine really thick, hot, humid heat. I'm originally from Arkansas, so I know about humidity. Also living in Los Angeles, I know about dry heat. But for some reason in Jamaica, even though it was so hot and the air was so thick, for some reason my skin wasn't dry at all. My skincare routine was very simple. I just put on face wash, sunscreen, a little brow gel, that was it. After I got out the shower, I only needed a little bit of moisturizer, but really barely even needed that. So even though it was hot, there was moisture in the air, and I felt like my skin just loved it and cleared up, and it was great. Versus in Los Angeles, like I said, it's dry heat. Even though the air isn't thick, for me, I still need a lot of moisturizer. For whatever reason, this weather dries out my skin. But that did not happen in Jamaica, and it was great. Jamaica is known for its rum. So I was drinking a ton of rum punch. It's good. So if you like mango, pineapple, like fruity type punch-like drinks, then you'll like the Jamaican rum for sure. Of course, I ate jerk chicken and rice and beans and coconut water fresh from the tree. However, I overall don't think that I experienced true Jamaican food. And I say that because the food on the resort was resort food, meaning like Americanized Jamaican food, or just Americanized food in general. Now, I have a few things to say about the resort and my experience on the resort itself, but I want to finish this culture section first. The next thing is I did not realize, and I don't know, I should have known this, I guess, but I did not realize that they drive on the opposite side of the road. So when I was picked up from the airport and I saw the driver get in on the other side, I was like, why is he getting in on that side? And it tripped me up, you guys. I mean, not even the driving on the opposite side, but just the roads in general. To me, it seemed like there were no lines in the street, traffic lights, and any sort of traffic rules are all suggestions. Like, it just is chaos to me driving in Jamaica. I definitely don't think I could do it. But that was another thing that I noticed, that they drive on the other side of the road. In terms of the language, the official language in Jamaica is English, but most people speak patois, which is basically a combination of Creole, French, and Spanish.
What's up? Everything alright? Yeah, man. Happy.
I noticed a lot of times when the natives or anyone who worked at the resort would talk to me, it would take me a second to understand them. Like, it sounds like English, but it's not quite fully English. So I thought that was interesting. But some things that I picked up is, of course, they say yaman. Yaman to me means a lot of different things. It could be thank you, it could be you're welcome, it could be of course. For example, instead of someone saying where are you from, they might say where you come from. Or someone might say everything Irie, which means like everything okay, or like how are you doing? And in response to that, you would say mi Irie, which is like I'm okay or everything's fine. That's just a couple of examples, but it's really interesting and a cool language to hear. I think the last and maybe the most important cultural difference that I want to talk about is women in power. And what I mean by that is the airport was mostly run and operated by women. I don't even think I saw any men working in the airport at all. You also see women working in the airports in the United States, but just imagine an airport where it's all women running everything. Going off of that, just being in an area where you are the majority, people who look like you are the majority, I think is a culture shock in of itself. Because even though I'm Black American or African American, I was in a place where it was mostly Black people. Even though there's still a difference in culture, there's also this feeling of safety or feeling of belonging being in an area where you are the majority. Black people are the majority. Women are the majority. It was a cultural difference, but also something that I really loved. So now I'll talk about my experience at the resort, Secret. Overall, I thought the resort was beautiful. I took so many photos. The sunset and sunrise was amazing. The views from my hotel room in of itself were great. However, two major issues. The first was the food. I thought the resort food was, for the most part, terrible. If I'm being really honest, super honest here, it was awful. The only thing that was good was one restaurant on the resort that was like hibachi, which is weird because you're in Jamaica eating like hibachi, but
Get down tonight! Through the window! To the wall!
that food was good because the guy was cooking it right there and seasoning it and all that. And also, like, throughout the day, they'll have people come out with grills and like freshly chopped chicken. That's where I had like the jerk chicken, which I don't know if it was real jerk chicken, but things like that where they're coming out with the grills and making the food or serving the meat patties. That was good. And the coffee shop was great. But most of the restaurants I went to on the actual resort, I just thought the food was bland. It was Americanized. It just didn't taste good. If you're gonna go to this resort, don't go for the food. Go for the hospitality and the views. Second major issue was my room. Now, even though I had a great view from my room, the setup of the room, and I think everyone's rooms are like this, but the setup of the room I didn't love. So basically, there's not a lot of privacy. So you have a door that opens up to a shower, and there's only a shower in there. And then you have a door that opens up to a toilet, and that's it. But the actual bathroom, like where you wash your hands, the mirror, the sink, all of that is all open. If you're by yourself, okay. But even if you were by yourself, just imagine you open the shower and then it's all open. Like there's no door, there's just no privacy. So if you're with someone, definitely that's something to keep in mind. The other thing that was weird, and I don't know if this was an attempt to save electricity or what, but the lights in the hotel or in the room would randomly go off and be off for a little bit, and then they'd come back on. It was like a weird power surge, and it would happen almost every day. Some other people who were on the trip did talk about electricity or their AC or just other like random maintenance type problems with their room. And when it rained, it did rain for like spurts, like pouring rain for spurts at a time, and then it would stop. The resort would become flooded. So you would get off an elevator and there would just be water like everywhere. I think that that's mainly an infrastructure problem, and you could tell the resort is old and wasn't built properly for the rain and all that. But those are just things to keep in mind, that it's not the most modern place in the world. The setup of the room is a little weird. You don't have a ton of privacy, especially if you're rooming with someone. And yeah, there's weird maintenance problems. Would I go to that resort again? Maybe. If I found a resort that had better food, then I would definitely go there. And obviously we are in a pandemic, so I have to address COVID, what that was like in Jamaica. I felt that overall Jamaica was very, very clean, especially the airport. The airport is one of the cleanest airports I had ever seen. And even when I first entered the airport and when I would go into restaurants, not even on the resort, but like off the resort, they had these giant spray bottles and they would spray your hands with hand sanitizer, but it's not the same hand sanitizer as it is in the United States. Like, it's thinner, a lot stronger. It almost basically smells like rubbing alcohol, which maybe that might be what it was. But to me, I just feel like workers were taking precautions. It's very clean. I felt safe. I did have to take a test when I left Jamaica, and the test had to come back negative in order for me to leave. So that's something to keep in mind. When you leave, you'll probably have to take a COVID test. I wanted to talk a little bit about doing business in Jamaica. From the airport to the resort, which that was a 15-minute drive, by the way. Anytime the car was at a stop sign, there would be someone popping up out of nowhere to clean the windows, or girls with sodas in their hand trying to sell you sodas. Like, basically anywhere you go, especially if it's off of the resort, you're gonna have people come up to you and like try to give you something, a card, or put a bracelet on you. Or people are very aggressive, I guess, when it comes to trying to do business, make a sale, all of that. Now, Ziggy, I got him in the gift shop, but this bracelet, I got it from, I don't know what you would call it, but there was just a lot of vendors who came to the resort, and I got it from one of those vendors. And this is a bracelet, apparently, that was, he handmade it and had to find the seashells and the beads and all that. The biggest tip I can give is just negotiate, negotiate, negotiate. Because those vendors will start off with a really high price, but then if you kind of indicate that you're going to go somewhere else, or if you're not necessarily like feeding into what they're trying to sell you, then they'll bring it down. And then they'll also try to push you to do like a bundle deal, like a 2-for-1 situation. The prices in the airport are so much lower than the prices in the gift shop, and the prices that the vendors are giving you are higher than the gift shop. But I also feel like the quality is better. So it's really just, I think overall, just use your best judgment, but definitely negotiate, and don't just like get something like, oh, I like that, I'm just gonna get that. Like, get them to bring the price down for sure. There was a lot of really nice like hand-crafted wooden pieces, like a dish or vase or something you would put in your home, and you would actually see the person who's selling them carving them as they try to sell it to you. And those things were 50, 60, 70 plus dollars, whereas if you got the same thing in the airport, it might be $15 or $20. But if you look on the sticker in the airport, it'll say like made in Indonesia or something like that, versus it's not getting it from the vendor, that was the person who made it, so it's more authentic. That's just one example. This bracelet, for instance, I got him to bring it down to 15. You could get a bracelet similar to this in the gift store for 12, so it's not a huge price difference, but again, I think the authenticity and quality is there. Overall, like, be prepared for a little bit of aggressive people coming up to you trying to sell you things, but stand your ground, negotiate, or just, say no and move on, and they'll leave you alone. So yeah, overall, my Jamaica trip was great. I wish I could have stayed longer. It was a really short trip, but I'm hoping that that won't be my only time going there. I absolutely loved it, and there's still so much more that I want to explore. but I wanted to do this video just to give you guys an idea of what to expect and share my experience. I did get sunburn. I didn't think that that was possible. First of all, I didn't really know Black people needed sunscreen like that, and certainly didn't think that we got sunburn. But the thing is, like, I had a mixture of the Black girl sunscreen and then this spray sunscreen and this face sunscreen, La Poche Rosé, I think that's what it's called. I'll put it on the screen, that I would put on my face. And when you have the spray sunscreen, that brand was Panama Jack. That's easy to reapply, but I wasn't reapplying it on my face. I just didn't think that I needed to. I thought that I could wake up, put on the face sunscreen, and then just be done. So that's unfortunately where I got the sunburn, is like all around here, my hairline. But it was only slight peeling, and it's a lot better now. It's mostly annoying in the beginning. And I also got attacked by bugs in Jamaica. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm someone that when I get bug bites, I swell up and have like really bad reaction. And the thing is, most of the trip I was fine, no bug bites at all. It was like the last 2 days where the bugs were attacking me. So in addition to hydrocortisone, I used this gel from the Panama Jack brand on the bug bites and on the sunburn, and it really provided a lot of relief. So if you plan on going to Jamaica, definitely bring bug repellent and some form of aloe. My experience coming back from Jamaica was awful, mainly because of the rudeness and aggression and anger that I experienced from the airport workers in the US. It was like night and day going through customs in the US versus going through customs in Jamaica. The thing is, for me, like, I haven't traveled out of the country in over a decade, so I just don't remember having any issues going through customs in the past, or even having an airport experience where people are yelling and treating you like you're in the military or herding you together like cattle. You're the scum and dirt underneath their feet. I do love Delta. I don't love the Atlanta airport. Don't think I'll be flying through Atlanta airport again. I usually fly through there, but I think that based on how chaotic and rude the people were, from me coming back from my trip, I don't think it's something I can deal with again. But I'm saying all that to say, traveling and flying should not be a miserable, just awful experience. It just shouldn't. And I think that there's things that you can do and put in place to make your experience a little less awful. When you combine the pandemic and you combine racism and people being understaffed and overworked, underpaid, there's all these factors now where a lot of what people are putting out on you has nothing to do with you, but rather just the situation of things. But still, I highly recommend that you get TSA pre-check, clear, and global entry. Now, I have TSA pre-check. I don't have the other two, and I'll link everything and you guys can do your research, but I do know at least with the TSA pre-check, you go through a different and shorter and simpler security TSA process, and clear and global entry makes your experience of going through security and even customs a lot easier. So I recommend like looking into those things, and I'm gonna look into them myself because I realized that, you know, I love like going to places, but the process of getting to from point A to point B can be awful sometimes, and I want to do everything that I can to make it not so awful. So my last little tip would be to look into some of those security clearances. So that was my brief overview of my trip to Montego Bay, Jamaica. I hope that was helpful, enjoyable. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment below. I also wrote a full blog post on my trip to Jamaica, and it'll include a lot more pictures, more details. So if you wanna go to my website, stylepros.com, and check that out, you can do that there. I haven't done like a sit down long form video in a while. I've been mainly focusing on short form video like the YouTube shorts or even just taking photos, but trust me, I have not forgotten about YouTube and my YouTube community. Thank you all so much for subscribing to my channel. If you have any specific video requests, please comment those down below as well. I would love to hear any suggestions that you have. I know a lot of you seem to like my reviews, and I have another review that may or may not have to do with my hair coming up very soon, so stay tuned for that. But until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next post. Peace. Oh, I do not have any jewelry on. Well, I'm not doing it over. Guys, I really hope that this wasn't in the video. I don't think. I'm just gonna take it out entirely. Why is the child, there's a child crying.